Welcome, everybody, to ILW Pod. I'm your host, Justin Wright. We are welcomed here today with the Psycho Killer, Dae Jamison. How are you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your podcast today.
Of course, it's something we've talked about for a little while. I saw some of your character work, and I thought you'd be an interesting choice to have here on the podcast.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
Before we dive into questions, would you like to give a shout out to any social medias, upcoming events, merchandise, anything like that?
So social media, all my social media name is the exact same. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and I believe X or Twitter, however you like to say it. Day underscore Jamison 412. Is that correct? Or is it Day underscore Jamison 412? I believe so.
I believe it is.
You look up Dae Jamison in all caps, you'll find me somewhere along the grapevine.
Got you. I'll make sure to throw all those in the link in the description. Make it
Appreciate
easy.
it.
Any
Upcoming
upcoming events?
events. We have this upcoming Saturday, November the 23rd. Ego Trip. It's going to be myself versus Ricky Rakua. One-on-one battle here in McKeesport, Pennsylvania at PWX. November the 30th, I will be in Indiana at JICW. Out there watching some talent, seeing if I can get my foot in the door out there. Um, and then let's see, December the 14th, back in the hometown, back at PWX for our PWX anniversary show. So if any of you are in the McKeesport or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, make sure y'all come out to 2125 Beacon Street here in McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Nice. Seems like you got a lot going on, traveling. It's nice to see, man.
Lots of travel, man. Lots of travel. I mean, I've only been an active wrestler since July 20th. So, I mean, since July up until November, we've hit Pennsylvania, West Virginia, um, Ohio, and then Indiana will be my next out of state booking.
Okay. Um, do you, even so young in your career, do you think it's important to get out and move to different states and learn different styles?
Absolutely. From being I was very young whenever I had gotten into this business, and I got to train with someone who's actually on live television now, currently the Ring of Honor Pure Wrestling Champion, Lee Moriarty. Shout out my dog. Um, he he's the whole reason why I know it's important to branch out because while he was still on the independent circuit, he was going to Mexico. He was trying to get to England. He was trying to make it to France. He was just as much as he could venture out, even if it was within the states or being without of the states, he always made sure that it was important to travel because no matter where you go, it's going to be someone's first time seeing you, and they're going to be like, "Wow, this guy's like he's interesting. Let me look into him." So yeah, I believe, especially if you're a younger talent, traveling is very, very important, especially early in your career.
Do you think just being able to go to other shows, whether it's in or out of your state, and being able to network with other talent, other promoters, definitely just helps like connect and spread your name out there?
Yeah, so like the world of professional wrestling is really social media based at this point. A lot of promotions won't bring you in unless you have a large following. So like, yeah, being able, even if you're not booked on a card, just being able to go to a promotion and like just getting your foot in the door, talking to the promoter, talking to the booker, talking to the guy who has the booking license, just getting to talking with their management, to talking with the talent, to talking with security and the referees. It's always good to just biggest thing whenever you walk into somewhere new is you walk around and you shake everyone's hand, you meet them personally, let them know who you are. It's a sign of respect in the business. So like the more connections that you have, the more places that you have the opportunity to go to via these connections.
Yeah, definitely. I can speak on that as a podcaster. Going and meeting people and shaking hands and talking to people definitely goes a long way. Um, Obviously, like social media plays a big part in it too, because I mean, even this interview, it was a message away. Um,
Right.
so getting the word out is always the most important. As probably the most, I don't want to say the most important aspect of the business, but it lays the groundwork for the business for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that.
Um, how did you meet somebody like Lee Moriarty?
That's a that's kind of a good question. So it dates all the way back, man. So I was 12 years old whenever I first started training. I was being trained under Quinn Magnum here at PWX, and Lee Moriarty was being trained by Brandon K out of Rise, but he would always come down to PWX to just use our ring and get some work in because at the time he was one of PWX's talents. So early into his career, he was always down there just getting in like in ring work. He was always here when nobody was at the building. And me being this young kid, I see someone who's not too far in age from me, but like old enough to the point where I'm like looking up to this guy, idolizing him, like, wow, I want to be like him eventually. So, just he was always here at the building and he was always super friendly. Any type of questions I would have, he was always answering them. Even to this day, if I reach out to him, I'm like, hey, man, can you watch over this match? Tell me what looked a little off. Tell me what looked good. Like just a little bit of feedback. And within a day or two, he's like right on with feedback. And that I appreciate so very much, especially being young in the business, having someone who's been places that I want to be and he started off young as well, so he like knows where I'm at within my journey. Having someone who had the like similar experiences really helps along the way. Um, yeah, I definitely took those years for granted because now that I look back on it, I'm like, I wish Lee was around a little bit more. I might be a little bit sharper with my skill, but yeah, I was just very lucky that I got to spend as much time with him early on in my career as I did for sure.
Okay. Generally, I start with this question. We got into some other stuff first, but um, an easy like wrestling question's always like we all have a story of when we started watching or started looking at it or was introduced to it. So, what was your introduction into professional wrestling?
Well, I didn't really have any introduction into professional wrestling. I got pretty much born into the business.
Okay.
Very early. I was a couple months old. My mom and my dad had their own promotion in Liberty, Pennsylvania, called Liberty Championship Wrestling. My dad brought in guys like Samu and those early on Samoan guys. Like I have pictures of them when I was a kid. Um, just being at the promotion. So I mean, from a very young age, I was already put into a wrestling ring. Probably by the time I could even stand on my own 2 feet, I was in a wrestling ring. Um, and then as a kid, we all watch wrestling with our parents. Like if you're into wrestling, you grow up watching it with your parents. So any uh any Friday night, any Thursday night, any Monday night, and then NXT started coming on Wednesdays. So as a kid, just all those days where we would have nothing to do, we'd watch wrestling, and then WWE Network comes out, and then we're always watching wrestling because you could watch everything all the way back from the 60s, 70s up until previous. So
Yep.
it was just like every day watching wrestling. And then I always played sports as a kid. So, just growing up, my baseball coach, Quinn Magnum, him being a wrestler, he was like, I want to start training my son. I'm looking for someone who's like his size so he can work with. And his son quit within 3 trainings, but here I am 7 years later actually working. So I guess I did something right.
Definitely. What would you say? Sorry, when would you say is like the first time you stepped in the ring for training?
it was it was December of 2017. I stepped foot for my first day into training.
Okay. What did that look like? And how old were you?
12 years old, in there with all adults. It was
That's
terrifying.
crazy.
I was probably 5'3", 100 and man, I think I was like the same way. I think I was like 150. I was like, yeah, 5'3", 150 pounds, just a short, chubby, stocky kid, just ready to ready to give it a chance, man.
What does What does training a 12-year-old look like? Are you doing all the same stuff
uh,
that all the other guys are doing?
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I learned everything from, you know, very basics of running the ropes to learning how to take bumps to doing all the cardio and physical work. You know, they all had to do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. I only had to do 25. So I can say there was that, like, we know you're not there yet. So, like, we'll keep you up to speed, but you're not
Yeah.
going to be there yet. So, like, yeah, they cut my work out a little bit. But I will say, being 12 years old and getting slammed, like body slammed from someone that's like 6'3", 6'4", and not really knowing how to tuck your chin properly, that was probably the worst concussion I ever had, and I learned from that mistake. From there on forward, my chin was always tucked. So, I mean, I learned a very valuable lesson from that.
And how long would you say like you spent in actual training?
I mean, there was about, I would say roughly 4 out of those 7 years was consistent training because there was like a 3 year period where because I was young, I was living with my dad. That kind of the whole me being a wrestler kind of fell short because me and him, the way he wanted me to go about my life was not the way that I wanted to go about my life as a young kid. So me being stubborn, wrestling got shut down, and I just up until I was 18, until I was legally allowed to go do my own thing, I was kind of away from training. And then as soon as I turned 18 in March, I was right there. I was in March of 2022, 2023. Yeah, last year. Because I just turned 19 this year. So yeah, last year it was full gung ho from there.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Um, Doing my research, did you start off as a referee?
I did. Yes, that was well uh yeah, so the way that like wrestling works whenever you're training, so because I was under the age of 16, I really wasn't allowed to do anything. So I worked security for those short period of like from 12 up until like 14, 15ish. I worked security, and then whenever I came back, whenever I was 18, I came in working as a referee, not knowing that was going to happen. I was just in the back the one day and they were like, "Hey, we need a referee. Are you able to ref tonight?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, I'll give it a chance. I've watched it on TV for God knows how many years. I think I'll know what's going on out there." And then I started getting invited to other promotions just being a referee. And I was like, I didn't even think that was possible. But then I started traveling being a referee, and then I was being a traveling referee, which was really cool, really, really cool. And then uh yeah, then my trainer gave me the green light, and now I get to travel and wrestle everywhere. So that's awesome.
So like being that young, into the business and being a referee, was that a difficult challenge? I mean, you got to think like knowing so the referee plays a large role in psychology if we think like peel the curtain back. So like was that something difficult to learn?
Um Being a referee, like in my opinion, I did not find it really hard to learn.
Okay.
Just based off of the fact that I've been watching for so long and just paying attention to like all the small minor details. A referee plays a large role in a match. Um, and I feel like the only thing that really made it weird for me was because I was so young. A lot of these guys, I felt like they just weren't gonna listen to me because like, what the hell
Yeah.
do I know? I'm a young kid. Like, but my guys here, they took it real light on me. They took it real nice on me, and Um, they always tell me I did a good job. They never gave me any struggles as a referee, so I thank them for that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was nerve wracking. I remember my very first show as a referee. I was definitely nervous. I was like, I don't want to go out there and like screw up someone's match, like I mess up a 3 count or something, or I don't know, something stupid, blow a spot. I don't know.
So like you mentioned not being able to wrestle at that time. Was you let's say there was a ref bump. Was that something you was able to be a part of or
Absolutely, and I was the only one taking the ref bumps at that time. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, anytime there was a ref bump spot, I always got booked for the match. They were like, "Yeah, Just throw Dae in there and Dae will take the bump. And I'm like, screw y'all, man. I'm not the crash pad. What the heck?
I mean, at least it's got to show that they have some sort of
Yeah, lots
they
of
see
trust and
something
faith.
in you.
Yeah, lots of trust and faith in me. So I mean, again, I must be doing something right, man. I must be doing something right.
Definitely. When did the psycho killer Dae Jamison become a thing?
After my uncle had passed away, that's really where the name came from. Um, how old was I? I don't even remember. For the longest time, Dae Jamison wasn't even a name. Like the whole psycho killer, that wasn't even that. I my when I first envisioned myself as a wrestler, I envisioned myself going underneath a mask. Um, and whenever my uncle had passed away, that kind of like I don't know, something sparked in me. I didn't want to go under a mask anymore, and I just started thinking of like different names. So I wanted my name to like pretty much have meaning. I wanted my wrestling name to have meaning. I wanted everything that I was doing with wrestling to have meaning. So my uncle's name was Dustin J. Rivera, and so that's where I get Dae Jamison from. Was his middle name was Jay, so the D in Dustin with J makes Day. So it was like a brand new day to be happy about. So I was trying to make that into something positive, and then using Jameson to incorporate the Dustin J part, and then just me thinking like, it's gonna be a new day, it's gonna be a good day, and I'm like, that sounds like psychotic. That sounds very psychotic, and I mean, I got bullied as a kid, and I feel like everybody has that story, and it's not like a pity me, but like yeah, I got bullied as a kid. I bullied others as a kid because I got bullied. Like it was one of those type of situations. Um, so I just kind of used like the whole mental manipulation part of it, and that's where like the psychoness came in, and then uh, playing video games with one of my friends. His gamer tag was Killer Bean, and I was like, Killer, like I want to steal the Killer part. So Psycho Killer came from there, and then if I think of like a Psycho Killer, I think of the Joker. So that's where like the whole Joker incorporation kind of came in with the gimmick, came in with the character, and then I'm able to use like previous things that happened in my past. I can use that with my character work, so it just comes real natural for me.
Okay. Um, so like, how did you come up with the mask? Because the mask is so cool.
So I don't even want to talk about the mask. My mask just got broken in my last show. I'm very upset about this. Um, so the mask came around. There was this group of people. I'm gonna give a shout out to another guy, Pav Novak. Um, he brought in this group of people down at PWX, and these guys are really creative. Shout out my dog Urza. He's the one that does all my mask customizations. You also might know him as Father Amen, ahead of Genophage. Shout out my dog. Um, so we just got to talking, and for a while I wanted to do. I don't know if you know who like Atticus Cogar is, but he does like the leather style face mask,
Okay.
and that's kind of the style that I wanted to go to. There was this animated series of Joker where he like peeled off his own flesh, and
Yeah.
that's technically what I wanted. I wanted like a leather mask that was like my own flesh that I was tearing off. But that ended up getting scrapped because they wanted way too much money, and yeah, we don't got that right now. So um yeah, my guy Urza, he started working on these like custom masks and stuff, and he was like, you have any ideas? And I was like, I was like, I do have some ideas. So I was like, let me make something real quick. So I made a mock up, threw some ha-has on it. I was like, cut the mouth here, make it a smiley face, and then you have fun with it. So in all actuality, the mask comes from my mind, and then it comes from my mask creator. Like whatever he's feeling, whatever I'm feeling, we just throw it all together, and it comes out looking crazy, looking sick, and I love it. So yeah, shout out Urza for always keeping me looking good.
So like you mentioned the Joker face pulling off. It's a great comic book, by the way. I guess we should shout that out. But with that said, like going in, the mask is pricey, which could be expected. Was there ever any thought to maybe switch it up and do like a face paint or something like that instead?
So there was originally there was a thought to go for the face paint because my gimmick is more like the Joker, but I didn't want people to think that I was stealing the Joker. I wanted it to
Yeah,
be my own like variant form. So I don't have to
Joker
put my
like.
face paint on. Right. I don't have to put face paint on in order to be my character. I already am my character.
Okay.
So as soon as I'm out there, I take the mask off. You see it in my eyes, feel my energy. Like I'm the killer is there, the psycho is there. Um, but I will say I did wear paint one time, and the only time I'll be wearing paint will be for like special attraction matches. I did a steel cage match with the collective versus the street stoppers at Pro Wrestling Cheap Shots, and I threw on some more paint for the match just to. It was a war game style, so I threw on some more paint just to prove the fact like I'm ready to go into battle.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever been asked about like because Tommaso Ciampa, who's in WWE, has the Psycho Killer name? Have you ever been asked like if there was any relation between the two?
Uh no. My dad is the only one that brought up like, hey, you might want to be careful with that.
Mhm.
So Tommaso Ciampa, if you're watching this, I love you and Johnny's work. I love DIY's work. I know Gregory Irons, so please do not hit me with a lawsuit. I'm just giving you credit for your work. Um, you know, the thing with wrestling is like everything has to be reused and recycled. So I knew that he was the psycho killer, but I wanted to find a way to like his gimmick doesn't match up with my gimmick, but we both can use the same name because of just some of the like things that we do, characteristics that we have. Yeah, I hope I don't get hit with a
Well,
lawsuit.
there are some big differences, obviously. I mean, his is definitely a lot different character wise. I mean, also you spell it different. So I'm sure there's a loophole.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for that one.
You mentioned you've only been like active since you said June,
July, yeah.
July. So by that, do you just mean like you've graduated and that's when your like actual pro journey has started?
July was my debut match. So I graduated. I graduated and then I moved to Florida, which was a setback. I don't remember when I graduated, but July was the debut. I flew back to PA from Florida for that match.
Okay.
But I don't remember like the exact month on when I graduated.
So like what was your thought process going into that first match?
Nervous. I wanted to throw up.
How'd it go?
I, as a wrestler, I always want my work to be better. Um, when I got in the back, the guys told me I did a good job. I think I did a good job. I got to go in there and wrestle Sir Godric Sandwell, the gentleman of exquisite caliber. Which, if y'all don't know who that is, y'all need to look that name up because he's gonna be something big real soon. Um, but I got to go in there with probably one of the best workers that we have in my area, and unfortunately, from me being from Western Psych, my doctors ended up coming out and chasing me off from my match. So I didn't even get to finish my debut match. Um, but I got to show them a little taste and a little glimpse of what I could do, and they wanted more, and that's what we wanted them to do was want more. So hey, we got what we wanted.
That would you say that's a key to this business is always just leaving the fans one more?
Yes, and yes. If they want more, that's you're doing something right. You're doing something right.
So like I'm gonna say this objectively. I would say like in modern wrestling, there's a lot of storylines that are prolonged too far. So you don't want more, you want less. Is
Yes.
that something that you think needs to change?
It all depends what story you're trying to get over. That's more of like it depends what we're talking about type of situation. Um,
It's subjective.
so I am a fan of long-term storytelling. I'm a very big fan of long-term storytelling. Um, we can mention the whole Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu thing right now. Bronson Reed joining the new bloodline, but if we look back on the indie scene, Bronson and Jacob have a whole lot of
They
bad
got
blood.
beef.
That's a whole lot of long-term storytelling there. You have to know like what's happening outside of that area to know
Yeah.
what's happening with that story. So it's like that I like, but some stories don't need to be dragged out forever just for your liking. Like you can give them two teasers and then boom, that third one is the go. You don't have to keep on bait,
Season and
bait,
season.
bait.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to do that with everything. Now, certain things, yes, not everything, not everything. And I gotta shut this
How
window. It's getting too cold up here.
you're good.
Goodness.
Would you say that is could it be difficult to do like long term storytelling on an independent level?
So if you have your consistent fans, if you have this is for companies that I don't know how I can word this. So if if the company has like a consistent fan base that is always there either weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, if they always have like the same consistent fans, then you can get away with the long-term storytelling because they remember things from months and months and months just because of the fact that that's where they go, and that's like that could just be the only wrestling that they watch is your company's wrestling. So yeah, if you have a consistent fan base, then you can sure as hell get away with long term storytelling. But if you have a sporadic fan base, which they're not there consistently at all of your shows, and you're trying to do this long term storytelling, they're just going to be confused. And our job as workers is to not have them confused. We want them to know what's going on. So that's all based off of like fan size and what type of fan base that a promotion has.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned being in a war game style matchup. I'm guessing going into that there was some long term storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. So their company has a very loyal fan base, which they're there every month for their shows. Um, I wasn't that was my first time actually being involved with this group that I was there with, but the fans knew who I was because of my outside promotion. So I came up there and it was literally my debut was in the steel cage match there and got over.
Okay.
Like so they knew the story that was going on. That was the main storyline that was happening at this promotion. Fans fell in love with it and we got them with the hook and sinker and we just got the
Reeled them
pop
in.
that was wanted from them and yeah, that was a good match, man.
Was you nervous going into that match?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my days. If you've never wrestled in a steel cage before, it's different once you get in there. They always say after you work in a steel cage, you walk out a different person, and that is so accurate. That is so accurate. You walk in the steel cage one person, you walk out the steel cage a completely different person. You leave a piece of yourself in that ring with you after that match. That's a very true statement.
Is it the physical element?
Yeah, man, it's like you have a regular match and then you have being locked in a cage and fighting. I give guys that do mixed martial arts so much credit for that. Just being locked inside of a cage, having to fight someone is a completely different element.
Um, Something else we've talked about is obviously you've done some traveling. How would somebody, or should I say, like, yeah, how would somebody go about trying to venture out, whether that's to surrounding states or um, further out?
Biggest thing is make sure you have a highlight tape. every promoter that you ask, whether if you can get on their shows or if they need any extra person, is going to ask you if you have a highlight tape. So a highlight tape, very, very important. Um, and then also having like a sheet made. So in case you have to like print it out and give it to either a commentator or the ring announcer, it's always good to kind of give them a sheet of information of like who you are, what your character is, where you're from, height, weight, name, information, things like that. Um, that's something that one of my trainees, or not my trainee, my trainer actually taught me was having like a Google Doc made and like handing it to them, or if you have a screenshot of it, either emailing it over to them or texting them via social media. Because, like we said earlier, social media is a huge part in professional wrestling now. So, yeah, I mean, if any talent, regardless if you're young or you're older, it doesn't matter. Make sure you're DMing these social media, or their social media platforms, I should say, and like just get your name out there, put your foot in the door, let them know like, hey, I'm in your surrounding area, regardless if I can get a match in there. Like I'll even work some security. Like a spot is a spot, because once you get in with a company, you're pretty much golden. After you get in with a company, they'll give you a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Someone's unable to show up to a show, you have your bag, you have all your gear on you. Boom, hey, we need you for a match. You may not be winning tonight, but we need you for a match. Take your opportunity and run. And that's how I've gotten into a lot of places, just showing up with Ampo and having my bag with me. And someone doesn't show up, hey, we need you. Cool, I got my stuff, put me in there, and boom. That's how I get my foot in the door.
Okay. Um, as somebody who is actually from West Virginia, no longer live there, but what was your experience like wrestling there? Because I remember as a kid, like going to independent shows. They're probably some of the best indie shows I've ever been to.
Yeah, shout out WVWF in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Shout out Wildcat. Dude, I'm a bad guy up there, so they hate me, and I love that.
West Virginia fans will talk their trash.
Oh, and I love it because I talk it right back.
That's
Yeah.
something I remember as a kid. Me and my dad would take me to IWA East Coast shows. It was when Madman Pondo owned it.
Okay.
So like, and Pondo was always a heel, and Two
Mm.
Up Tony also wrestled
Oh,
there,
Too
always a
Tough Tony. I
heel.
haven't heard that name in a while. Yeah.
But my dad would talk so much trash to him.
Yeah.
Actually, shout out to both of them. They've been on the show. I
Nice,
was
nice.
lucky to talk to him, which is crazy because as a kid, you watch them and you're like, I'll never get to interact
Right.
more than maybe
Right.
outside or yelling at him. So yeah, those incredible times.
Yeah, those are
Uh,
surreal moments. Those are real surreal moments. I've had a few of those moments myself.
what like meeting people that you saw like as a kid
Dude,
and then getting to
sharing a locker
wrestle.
room. Yeah, sharing a locker
Yeah,
room with people I grew up literally watching. That those are the most surreal moments. And then you meet them and they're genuinely nice people. And it's like, wait, you're talking to me? Like, okay, let me stop marking out. Hold on. Yeah.
I've heard it's still important to do that, even if you're in the
Yeah.
business. It's
Yeah,
still nice to just be a fan.
yeah, don't fall in the trap of not being able to enjoy the sport, because as soon as you don't enjoy the sport anymore, this is not fun.
Definitely,
So
that's what I've. Once
yeah,
it turns into a job, it's no longer.
yeah, no longer fun. Yeah.
Um, recently, WWE started the WWID system. They just signed a prospect from the IWC there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
As somebody that's from that state, I know the IWC isn't far from you. Is
No,
that
sir.
something that like adds motivation, fuel to the fire to say, hey, maybe I could be a prospect?
Yeah, that the fact that WWE is just doing a prospect system, period, makes me just want to strap up my boots a little bit tighter and go out there and really put the pedal to the metal. I mean, I think it's amazing what Triple H is doing. I think it's absolutely amazing. Um, this is something that we never would have saw under Vince McMahon. So I mean, this is definitely a new age of wrestling. Um,
Definitely.
I really wish I could make it into IWC. The only problem with IWC is they're all homegrown based talent. So if
Yeah,
you don't train at their company, they don't use you unless you're a Matt Hardy, a Jeff Hardy, or someone who is worth big bucks. So IWC is currently not on the market for me. Um, but if I could get just anywhere, anywhere, anywhere in the world that could just put my foot in the door. I have a few connections, but just because I have a few connections doesn't mean that I'm able to do anything much with it. Like
yeah,
I know Joe Dombrowski personally, commentator for MLW, commentator for JCW. Like know Lee Moriarty. Like I know a few guys who have made somewhat of a name for themselves. Um, and I'm hoping maybe just because I know a few people, I might have a few eyes on me. So I mean, the year of 2025 is going to be a takeover year. I'm going to be putting just all of my focus, all of my drive, all of my concentration into wrestling because this is what I want to do. I enjoy doing this. There's never a day where I wake up and I'm like I don't want to wrestle anymore. I wake up and I'm like I want to go down to the ring. I want to go train for a little bit. I don't have much to do with my day. Let me go train. So I think the whole WWID system is just especially for the guys that are my age, like just the younger guys who have that drive for it. Like there's going to be a lot of competition. 2025, you're going to see a whole lot of competition in the indie circuit, and it's just going to be the fact that everybody's going to want to be signed.
yeah.
So hey, pay attention to the indie circuit in 2025. It's going to be pretty crazy.
Would you say the fact that you have, for your age, a large sum of experience, do you think that gives you an edge?
Um, I think if I said that gave me an edge, that might shoot myself in the foot.
Okay, that's
Um,
fair.
I think I can't even say it's like an advantage. I mean, look at Javon Evans, man.
Yeah, young, 19, I think 19, 20, something like that.
19, yeah,
Yeah,
19 years old, same age as me, born into the look at Thea Hale. Me and
yeah,
Thea, me and Thea graduated the same class.
that's
she's
crazy.
she's on NXT,
Okay,
right? You see what I mean? Like
that's insane.
I have more years of experience than Thea, but because Thea had it, she got signed. So shout out my girl Thea. But yeah, I mean, I wish it gave me an advantage. I wish it gave
Yeah,
me somewhat of leverage. But yeah, no, I feel like I'd just be shooting myself in the foot. So we'll stay humble on that one.
okay, I respect it. Look, I'll be honest. I'm a little older, not much. But my experience with most 19-year-olds is there is no amount of humble. So I can appreciate that. I'll give you you have my respect.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Um, do you ever catch slack for being so young in the business, like going into a locker room with older guys? There's some guys that are on the indie scene for 20, 30 years. Do you ever get, hey kid, why like what the heck are you doing here type vibes?
Uh, nah. Normally, I try to stay real quiet whenever I go into a new locker room. Um, I'm a very socially awkward type of person. So if I don't really know the people, I'm like really to myself. I'll come up, shake their hand, introduce myself and everything. But after that, I go in my little corner and I'll unpack my bag, start getting myself ready, just stay to myself. Um, so normally, if any of the veterans in the locker room talk to me, it's normally after my match to give me like a slap on my ass and be like, "Hey, you did good out there, kid."
Okay.
Um, but I've never had like a moment where it felt like I wasn't wanted in the backstage or I felt like I shouldn't be there type of a situation. I've always felt welcomed. And that could just be the promotions that I've worked at because I really haven't worked at many promotions. So I'm sure I'll go somewhere a little farther like to the West Coast and it'll be a little weirder. Like, hey, you don't need to be in our locker room. And I'll be like, hey, what did I do? So Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's different everywhere, but in my little area that I've been traveling around, I haven't felt any negative energy like that.
Obviously it's a different position I'm in because I'm a podcaster, not a wrestler. But like, I can contest for the social awkwardness, especially when approaching a talent, because it's like, for one, for me, it's like, the whole handshake, tell him my name. Like, why should this guy care who Justin is with the ILW podcast? Like, why does he give a shit? He just had a
Right.
30-minute match. So like, um, I I find it sometimes, I guess, a little difficult to get over that social anxiety.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's something like I just went to my first show where I went as a podcaster and shook hands, and I knew one guy. I talked to one guy before I went there. Um, he actually invited me, so like I knew somebody, but it was still like a weird situation. Like
Yeah.
he's like, "Who do you want to talk to?" And I'm like, "I want to talk to these guys," and they're like, "He's like, just go talk to them." I'm
You're
like,
like, ah,
"You're not gonna go
wow.
with me?" Like,
Right, right. Like, what the, you just gonna
he's
send me
like, "Just
over there?
go."
Wait. Yeah.
Which is funny because it was funny because like there was a couple guys he was like, well, he might be a little tough to talk to, or he was. There was one guy he was like, definitely. He's like, he might, but he's kind of an ass. So like, be
Ah,
careful. And I still went up and shot the shot or whatever. But
like, hey man, can I help you out?
so it's just funny. But no, I was curious, I guess, on the aspect of this, that social anxiety and that if the difficulty to talk to others, especially superiors or people that have been doing this for a longer, is still there, even if you're a wrestler.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, did you ever have any trouble like in the locker room or see any trouble in the locker room like as a kid?
Nah, I
Like,
definitely trouble in the locker room. I'm not gonna say any names just for
yeah,
out
we
of
don't need to
respect
say
for
names.
this guy, but there was definitely someone who was in my company who was like a real big problem starter, and I'm the youngest one in my locker room, but I've been here. Damn, I've almost okay. So I've probably been here the longest out of everyone that's in my locker room, but I'm the youngest who's in my locker room. So it's kind of weird. Like I know I've been coming to this building literally ever since I was a little kid, so I know everything about this building. I know about
You're
every
the
talent
youngest
that walks.
veteran.
Yeah, yeah, it's super weird. Like people will come up to me, ask me where things are, and I'm like, you know. But there was a guy who was here. He was also a booker here for a while, and he was doing a whole lot of grimy things. And me and him actually got after one of the shows. I was main event, my first ever main event. Came in the back, and something happened to one of our referees due to him, and I came in the back and I found him, and I was like, no, this is not how this works, yo. I don't care how long you've been here. I don't care what you've done in the business. This is not the way you act, man. Like you don't put your hands on officials, especially after a show. What are you doing? You're an idiot. So that almost turned into a big old brawl. The whole locker room is like separating us, making sure anything didn't happen. And then Big Boss Man had to get both sides of the story, and he ended up getting fired that same week. So, yeah, you want to act stupid, and I let this know now. If you come to PWX and you want to act stupid in our locker room, it does not end well for anyone. It does not end well for anyone. We don't play games. We don't deal with stupidity. We're a big family here, and if you're not part of the family, you can leave.
Would you say like creating an atmosphere where everybody feels like invited is important?
Very, very important. If you don't feel welcomed, why the hell would you show up?
Definitely. So it's got to
You
be
have to
something
feel.
that you
I
would
mean,
find would like help grow, even
right. I
as a
mean, think
talent.
about this. So imagine you're going through like family issues, right? And your only escape is coming to this building. You show up here and I'm acting like the most complete dick to you ever. Why would you ever come back here? You wouldn't want to come back here. You would deal
No.
with your personal issues at your house rather than coming here. So we want to make here the most inviting, the most welcoming place. So if you are dealing with personal issues outside this building, when you come to those doors, leave your problems at the door, come on down and be stress free.
Okay. I like it. And looking at it like outsider perspective, it looks like a lot of locker rooms are going for that. Especially I think, maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago now, locker rooms were a lot different. It was
Absolutely.
completely different ball game. What happened in the locker room stayed in the locker room. Some of the
Yeah,
things
much.
were better not said than seen or whatever, however you want to say it. So like,
Yeah.
I think it's cool even as a fan just to see how inviting a locker room is because even outside going to talk to people, like it wasn't like that as much
Mm-mm.
back then. You
Yeah,
might
no, they
talk
were
to a
ready to
few
fight.
guys.
They were ready to fight
Yeah.
after their matches. They were like, "You pissed me off. We're throwing down." Yeah, it's not. At least not in my area. It's not like that. And I know even traveling up to West Virginia and Ohio, it hasn't been like that either. So, yeah, the business has changed a lot in the last 20 to 30 years.
um, as a wrestler, you have to have some sort of inspirations. Every wrestler
Absolutely.
does. Who would you say, like, if you had to pick five guys that you have inspired you to do what you do? Who would those guys be?
So Batista was number one based off of his energy whenever he would come out and boom, pyro, loved it. Um, So yeah, Batista because of his character, Dolph Ziggler because of his selling work, Ricochet just because that man can literally flip and do all types of crazy nasty things that I cannot do. Uh, Finn Balor because watching him in Japan and then him coming to NXT and putting on those bangers with Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe made me absolutely fall in love with him. And AJ Styles similarities with him and Finn Balor. I love the whole Japan side of things. Um, that strong style. Like Japan is one of the places that I pray to God I can make it to before I die. Um, and then this is a sixth one, but my boy Lee Moriarty because the style that he uses while wrestling is also the style that I use now while wrestling, just from learning from him. So I always have to throw him in there, give him a little for him.
Okay. As a wrestler, would you say you have like a favorite match type, whether you've been in it yet or you haven't? Like, is there one that you would say, hey, that's my favorite?
Hmm. If I want to have any match, any match, and I think it's just because I'm psychotic and they don't do these anymore, but I want to have a buried alive match.
Okay.
Watching Mankind and Undertaker run that in WWF. I love that. I love that whole story. I love the matches leading up to it. Um, so if I ever get to book myself into like we'll say create a match, yeah, buried alive for sure.
Speaking of a buried alive match, I'm not sure if this spot was in a match itself or if the set was there just for to build up a match. But I I believe it was Big Show, and he's on the SmackDown stage, and he throws Foley off the stage into the mound. It has to be one of the sickest like buried alive spots because the way Foley bounces after he
Yeah,
hits was sick.
and then he like rolls down the
Yes,
sand. Yeah,
it was
yeah.
nasty.
Those were the what? I think that was the show prior the
Yeah,
show prior to the pay-per-view.
I think so. I think it was the build up, but
Yeah.
it was just a nasty bump. And Foley took all kinds of them, but that was one that's always to me like obviously you think of the Hell in a Cell, and like his death matches, stuff like that, or the elbow he did on the floor. But that was one of the nastiest Foley bumps that does not get talked about.
Yeah, not enough.
Um, what would you say like there's if there was a stipulation you just would not want to get into? What do you think
Anything
it'd
that
be?
involves tax.
Have you been in tax before?
No, and I will never ever be in tax. Those are one of the things that like if me and the guys talk about it in the back, y'all can take that spot, leave me out of it. No, I'm
Okay.
not taking tax. Not happening.
It's
I'm
crazy.
psychotic. I'm psychotic, but I don't like needles.
What's crazy is as a fan, that's the one spot I've always wanted to do. I don't
Oh,
know why.
oh
I think it's just
no.
the after I saw Orton and Foley, once again, Mick Foley, but the way Orton looked, I was like, I know it hurts, but the messed up part of me wants to know.
Oh no, it's not fun. Man, being look, I refed the tack match and I got tacks in my kneecaps and my hands being a referee, and that was not fun.
No,
That
okay,
like kind of gave me the icing on the top. I was like, ow, if I had the bump in that, ow,
you're
no.
good. Okay.
Yeah, pass on that.
Um, I guess one more serious question before we wrap this up. Where do you see Dae Jamison going in the future?
Y'all will see Dae Jamison whooping ass on AEW and Ring of Honor against Lee Moriarty. That is the plan. That is the goal. 2025, the goal is to get signed and go wrestle Lee Moriarty so I can slap him in the face and tell him that I made it too.
Okay, I like it. I
Yeah.
like the fire. I like the motivation.
Yeah,
Good.
he is my motivation. He is the motivation. Just because of the fact that he was here, he stood in the ring that I stand in, he came out the stage that I come out of, he talked and worked the same crowd that I work in front of. If he was able to make it out of McKeesport, Pennsylvania, why the hell can I not make it?
Definitely, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more.
I greatly appreciate you for your time. I greatly appreciate you inviting me on here. I know it took a little bit of a minute, but
It
again,
happens.
thank you, man. Greatly appreciate it.
One more thing before you go. I always end with or a word of advice from my guest. Being young and in this business, do you have any advice for somebody of any age, of any stature that wants to be a pro wrestler?
Man, um, never take no as an answer.
Okay.
Take everything with a grain of salt because just because one person tells you no doesn't mean the next person you take this information to is going to tell you no. So just because you've been shot down and you feel like you're at your lowest, no. We're going to move on and we're going to take it to somebody else and we're going to see what somebody else says and we're going to get some more feedback from them. And then once you get the feedback from this person and maybe even this person, you mix the feedback, you see what everybody's saying, you take it with a grain of salt, and then you add it to yourself and you keep on progressing forward. Because if you're not progressing, if you're not building, then you're not doing anything. If you're even progressing this much, if you're leveling up just this much, you're doing something.
Okay. Thank you once again, Day. I really do
Hey,
appreciate
thank you.
it. Um, I'm gonna leave the door open. If you ever want to come back on here, maybe after you take that Ring of Honor um, Q title off of Lee or Pure Championship. My bad.
Yeah.
Once you take
Yeah.
the Pure Championship off of Lee Moriarty, we'll get you on here. It'll be fun.
Hell yeah. Hey man, hopefully if nothing's going on by January, I have some big things coming up in January. So if you want to catch back up in January, maybe I'll have some extra gold to talk by then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doors open. I'll see you
Hey man.
soon. How's that? We'll leave it with see you soon.
Hey, that works by me, brother. That works by me.
All right.